Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Miscellaneous Gab, and today we will be discussing the return of Silo Season 2 on Apple TV. I could not be more excited. Season 1 ended on such a cliffhanger that I can't wait to get so many of my questions answered. But before we dive into speculation about Season 2, I'm going to do a little recap. Everything you need to know about Season 1, everything you need to remember, the main players, characters involved, so that you feel confident going into Season 2 without having to rewatch everything. I have not read the books. This will have no book spoilers whatsoever. Now, Season 1 was not a perfect season. There were parts that I felt like were too slow, that dragged on, where we didn't move the plot as forward as we should have, but there's no denying how absolutely fantastic that whammy of a cliffhanger was. What a way to keep us frothing. Silo really revolves on the idea that the only thing more dangerous than the world outside is truth itself. Silo features a dystopian society buried deep underground where humanity's last survivors live in isolation, cut off from the quote toxic wasteland above. Silo features 144 floors and houses about 10,000 citizens who we are believed to think are the last citizens left on Earth or the continent or wherever, what have you. There's no even motorized form of transportation to go up and down the 144 floors. A journey from bottom to top will take several days. There's no cell phones. There's no TikTok. The citizens don't know much, but they know one thing, that the silo keeps them safe, that there was a rebellion that happened 140 years ago, and that whatever they do, they should not go outside because outside is death. Anytime someone either wants to go outside or is sentenced to the worst type of punishment, they have to go outside to quote clean. The season starts with Sheriff Holston saying that he wants to go out and clean. And we get way more back into his backstory. Holston's wife, Allison. She is an IT specialist, and they have been chosen after so much time waiting that they're selected by their silo overlords to have children. There is population control. Every woman is forced to be on birth control, whether she wants to or not. The silo also controls who cannot and cannot be in relationships. After that time, they have about, I think, 1 year to get pregnant. If they don't, it has to go back in. At the time, she's contacted by a man named George Wilkins. Because she works in IT, he needs help kind of breaking open this unbreakable drive, this mysterious relic of the past, that something that she has never seen before. And when they finally get onto the drive, she sees something that literally blows her idea of reality out the window. And that's a general theme. I'm someone who has always wished to just have my own notion of reality exploded for me. How cool would it be if we found out that magic was actually real? How cool would it be if we found out that there are gods running the sun across the sky like Greek mythology? Imagine being our ancestors whose minds were truly blown for the first time, whether they looked into a telescope and saw that there were other planets, maybe they saw fire for the first time. This show is all about challenging what you think of that you know. And even as we see the higher ups, the people who are in positions of power, they don't even know everything. And it almost functions as a silo of getting down deeper into the knowledge, one layer leading to another, one thing on top of another. And it's about seeing like the bird's eye view, the big picture. Allison's viewpoint of the world is challenged when she meets George Wilkins. She also learns, after meeting with a fertility specialist, she learns that they never took her IUD out in the first place. These new revelations cause her to kind of lose her mind a bit. She cuts the birth device out of her body, and eventually, after seeing cleaning videos, seeing that there's more out there in the world than this toxic wasteland, allegedly, she decides to go and asks to clean. This obviously breaks her husband, and he is absolutely devastated. He spends kind of an unknown amount of time investigating and going deep. He investigates George, and that leads him down to meet Juliet Nichols, and she is kind of the main character, main protagonist of this show. She's tough, right? And they want you to know that she's tough. Like, it's kind of in your face a little bit. I love Rebecca Ferguson, but I'm like, okay, this like slim, tiny woman is like manhandling these generators, and she is one of their best mechanics. Clearly, she's very valuable. The people down under are literally responsible for generating power for the entire silo. So she is not single-handedly, but kind of keeping the whole silo alive. Holston starts talking to her. He learns about George's alleged suicide, and she confides in Holston. She thinks that George, who was her lover, was murdered. Holston, who's the sheriff, who represents powers that be, she shows him George's hideaway, where he has relics of the past and even speaks of this mysterious door, perhaps the mines, what is connecting the silo maybe to the outside world. Eventually, Holston, after getting deeper into this, and I still don't think we know exactly how deep he got, he decides to follow his wife, go after her. Now, when she went out to clean, she told him if it was a toxic wasteland, she would just wave, and if it really was this paradise, she would clean. So he's always had this notion that maybe there is really more to this world than we know. And once he starts to get confirmation on that, he wants to go, I want to go outside. And once you say that, it's kind of like Beetlejuice, except when you say it one time, you're out. When he goes out to clean, he does see the birds in the sky, the beautiful view. He cleans the camera, and then he kind of breaks down and dies. As we're watching the show, we're starting to think, what is going on? Are they purposely sabotaging these people who have now just seen this beautiful oasis? It doesn't actually seem like a toxic wasteland. Are they putting poison in their suits? What's going on? And that's kind of what we're thinking the whole time, that this is something sinister from the powers that be. We meet a couple important people as we get into the first few episodes. We meet Bernard, who's head of IT, played by Tim Robbins. He's very important. We also meet the mayor, Mayor Jans, and Marnes, who is the deputy. Is kind of a rift going on between Judicial, who is headed up by Robert Sims, played by Common. He's absolutely excellent in this role. I love how they got deeper and deeper into him, his family, his life throughout the season, and I really can't wait to see what season 2 will bring in terms of Sims. He just exudes this like power, badass, iron rule, no nonsense, and that Judicial is this enigmatic department that you do not want to F with. Like when he's walking around in his turtleneck and jacket with his beard and bald ass head, like he means business. Once Holston has gone out to clean, that there is a vacuum of power. We see that Mayor Jans and her deputy Marnes, they have like a secret relationship, a secret love affair, and it really is secret because it's not legally sanctioned. It's not allowed. They have this feud with the judicial department, and basically there's this vacuum for who the hell is going to be the new sheriff. Apparently, Holston said he wanted the new sheriff to be Juliet Nichols, this grungy, tough girl boss mechanic who, like I already said, is responsible for keeping the silo alive. There's a rift in wanting a member of Judicial to be the new sheriff. You have Bernard, who doesn't want Juliet to be sheriff, that there was an instance of stealing some electrical tape, okay, remember this, and he tries to block her at every move. Mayor Jans and Marnes make their way down to the down under to ask Juliet to be the new sheriff. She's confused. She obliges so long as they let her repair the generator in this very badass scene. It's very intense. It shows the intensity and the high stakes nature of her job. She eventually assumes her role as sheriff, and what does she start doing immediately? Very obviously investigating the murder / suicide of her ex-boyfriend, George. She's given hints from Holston, who has carved the word truth into his sheriff's badge. She knows right away that there's like things that she needs to see. Juliet, like when I was watching this the whole time, I'm like, girl, you need to learn to keep some things to yourself. She's just so obvious. She's so abrasive about what she's doing. Like she doesn't have a whole lot of sleuthing, which it makes sense. She has lived in the generator in the dusty, musty down under, where she is used to just shouting about what she needs and wants. It's no wonder that homegirl like is not that great about just playing it cool. She finds this book with pictures of wildlife. That's when she's starting to really open up her eyes to what's out there. Okay, if you're someone who's lived in a dusty silo your whole life and then you see a picture of like a freaking whale or a bird, you're like, okay, what is going on? So she eventually sees that this book has signatures in it. The signatures lead her to the woman Gloria, who's the fertility specialist who, remember, Allison consulted with. She realizes that Gloria is kind of hopped up on medication. She's not lucid and can't tell her much. The only person who can send an order for this medication to be stopped is the judge. Up until now, we think this judge is also another all-being, all-powerful force, but when Juliet goes to visit the judge, we see that the judge is like a bit sick. I actually thought she had been traveling or something, maybe outside of the silo. Just seems like weak and feeble, which just shows like maybe she doesn't know what's going on either. Maybe she doesn't have all this power. She eventually leverages her dad, who's a doctor, Jorah Mormont, aka, to help her get some alone time with Gloria where she can stop her medication. Gloria talks to her about being the last of the Flame Keepers, and as the name would suggest, the Flame Keepers is the secret order, the secret society that is in charge of keeping the truth alive. Members of this group were deemed by the silo to not be able to have children, either because they deemed them too rebellious, too much of a threat to the power struggle, or for some alternate reason. We also learned that Juliet's mother was supposed to be one of these people who could not have children. Now, I don't know if Jorah Mormont helped her and then they couldn't clean him because he's a doctor and like they don't have a lot of doctors in the silo. We don't know exactly what happened, but her mom was not supposed to have kids. So Juliet finds more clues left behind by Holston when she talks to Gloria, such as him recommending to Gloria to put flowers in front of the mirror. So she's starting to think like, what's going on with the mirror? Eventually she does learn that they have cameras in all of the mirrors. The citizens don't really know like what cameras are, what they're used for. She also finds the hard drive in Gloria's vent. Now, I was thinking about this. Holston leaving the clues behind for Juliet is akin to like Dumbledore leaving behind a book of fairy tales for Hermione and not being like, hey, hint, let's give you a few more hints, right? I know he was covering his tracks, but if you can leave a hard drive in a vent, leave a note with it. Just leave a note with it. Dumbledore, Holston. She finds the hard drive in the vent. Sims comes after her. There's all these chases. Eventually jumps off the ledge because she thinks that she's going to get in trouble. And so she, in a way that we learned that George did as well, kind of chooses death. She survives, okay? Luckily, she does survive. We knew she would. She jumps and runs, and then she ends up holding Sim's wife hostage. That really makes him really mad. And I think we see a different side of Sims because for so long he's Mr. Law and Order. Now we see like, yeah, he is also a family man. He wants to protect his wife and son. Billings, who has become the deputy in Marne's place, finds the book that Juliet left behind and takes a page from it and burns it. We don't know everything about, we know he has this syndrome, this kind of convulsion. It's like a shaky thing, and it's a big problem. Like it has to be kept top secret because if we find out that you have it, you're in very big trouble. Juliet is cornered by Bernard, who is not just the innocent head of IT, but is pretty much the guy in power. I mean, he is now deputy mayor. He took Mayor Yon's spot, but she always thought he was like a nice old man, and apparently he is the highest level up. He is the man behind the mirror. He and Sims corner her. They take her, they basically say that, oh, did you just volunteer to clean? And they kind of force her into a confession. The last kind of craziness, and here's where the twist comes from. Juliet has the hard drive and she goes on the hard drive. She sees the cleaning videos from other people who had gone out to clean. She sees the oasis, the same sky that Allison saw that made her want to go outside. So she knows there's more. With help of one of her friends, she decides to broadcast this to the silo for like 30 seconds before they shut it down and chase her down. Bernard, who is in this control room with a very select number of people. There's only a few people there that know that they have the capabilities to spy on their citizens and have all these screens up with cameras in the mirrors. Bernard tells everyone to look away. He even tells Sims to look away. So we see these levels of knowledge. Sims, for being as big and bad as he is, doesn't know what Bernard knows. And that leads us to the question, what does Bernard know? They capture Juliet. Bernard basically says, look, you gotta go. We're sending you out to clean. You have to do it. You have to waive your right to a trial, or everyone that you love, like including Jorah and your friends, Marsha, and all the people down under, they will get in a lot of trouble. And he means it because even the guy who helped her broadcast the message and who kind of helped her access the hard drive was sentenced to 10 years in the mines. So she kind of tells him about this door that George told her about, and Bernard looks a bit confused. And this again leads us to the question, what does Bernard know? We also learn in the final scene between Bernard and Juliet that George actually did commit suicide. Now, this was very hard for Juliet to see because this whole time she thought he had been murdered. Rather than being kidnapped and tortured by Sim's men, which would lead to the hard drive, George actually opted to commit suicide and let that truth die with him, but still have a chance of surviving via maybe the last flame keepers. They are about to send Juliet out to clean. However, her friend Marcia, who has agoraphobia, hasn't left her house in years or decades, is able to make sure that the tape that they use around that still suit is the right tape. So this is kind of this triple surprise where we learn, actually, you hear tape being mentioned. If you watch it back, you hear heat tape being mentioned a bunch. They had stolen some heat tape from IT in mechanical, but it didn't work properly. It didn't work well. Bernard says, oh, well, she can't be sheriff. She stole this tape. Then we kind of realize, like, did he just not want anyone looking too into the tape? Because they would find out that IT was sending people out to clean with defective heat tape. It wasn't even that they were poisoning them. The air outside is actually toxic and they're finding a way to let it in. When Juliet goes outside, she gets a note, her friend, that says, like, don't worry, they're in good supply. She doesn't realize what this means until later. When she goes outside, this is the big, like, what? The big crazy moment. She starts to see that beautiful oasis that she's seen before, only she's seen it before. It looks familiar. The pattern of the birds was identical to that cleaning video she had watched previously. She soon realizes that it's a simulation. She goes up to the screen and instead of cleaning, she does the mic drop, but it's a wool drop to basically be like, hey, screw you, Bernard, screw you people, I know what's up. At that time, Bernard mentions audibly, she knows. What does she know? Sims looks at him, not knowing what he means by that, because Sims doesn't know shit, literally. Like, he knows a few things, but he doesn't know shit. She walks away. She puts the sheriff's badge back on Holston's body, so she does see that they did in fact die. And then the VR, maybe as she loses signal, starts to glitch and glitch and glitch, and she sees this crazy wasteland. Not only that, but there are dozens of silos. Okay, so that's a brief little recap of what happened in season 1. We are left on a huge cliffhanger. As season 1 ends, we also see Bernard brandish this key that says 18, and it's lit up with a red light. Maybe it's receiving some sort of signal from the other silos. He opens a room, which we've never seen before, and in the reflection of his glasses, we kind of see this room light up. We know two things. One, that the room is rather large, and two, that nobody is in it. So maybe it's only occupied under dire circumstances. What questions are we hoping season 2 answers for us? One is obviously, who knows what? How much does Bernard know? And is there anybody else in his silo that might know more? There's someone at my door. People are siloed within their own positions, but it seems like Bernard knows everything. So where does his knowledge end? Does he know everything that George found out about what lies beneath the silo and another door and that water? Oh my gosh, that water. That scene of Juliet climbing down the rope over the water, literally the stuff of my nightmares. Do we find out where that goes? Do we find out what Bernard knows? What do all the relics mean? We understand that the Flame Keepers are in charge of keeping the relics alive, but what other significance do they have? What's going on with the other silos? Big question. Are the other silos, have they been in there for as long as silo, maybe number 18, if that's what we want to call it? Have they been in there for as long? Are there as many people? Do they work the same way? Is it a bit of a simulation where they all are different, or they're all on different levels, or they all have things that are fundamentally different about their society? Does anyone live in the city? That big wasteland that we saw, does anyone live there? Or is that also a relic of the past? Just how far out does the silo take place from modern time? We see things that we might seem familiar, such as a Pez dispenser, a video camera. I would say this feels a little bit more analog than where we currently are. Those relics are from the 90s, the 80s, etc. 140 years ago was the rebellion. So when did the catastrophic incident take place that destroyed humanity and maybe forced them to live in silos? Another question we want answered is, what is the syndrome? So we know that Billings, like, he played by the rules, but he was fair and ethical. And I think he's going to be in a very torn position because he now knows, he saw a page of the book, he burned the book, he has been promoted to the new sheriff. Bernard basically said, hey, we know you have the syndrome and we're willing to make an exception. They have complete control over him. Even if he wanted to stray off the path, he has his wife to think about, his family to think about, and likely wouldn't be as rebellious as perhaps Juliet or someone with nothing to lose. Where does the door beneath the silo lead? Does it connect other silos? Does it lead to the city? Where does it go? We hope to find that out in season 2. What room does Bernard go in? Where is this a mysterious control room? Does it allow him to talk to the other silos? He seemed pretty floored that Juliet knows at the end of the season. So what does he think or suspect that she knows? And who is he going to tell about that, if anything? We also have to remember that Juliet does not have an infinite supply of air. We now know that the air outside is indeed toxic. It is a toxic wasteland. And just because she has effective heat tape on her suit does not mean that she can simply wander around forever, or even probably walk to the city off in the distance. Where does she go first, and which silo will she go into if she does go in? Those are the main questions. I think there are a lot more loose ends that need to be tied up from season 1. I did hear a YouTuber who had read the book say that don't worry, the book gives answers to pretty much everything or everything. Even if something doesn't feel completely answered, it will hopefully be answered in the next season. So while I had my problems with season 1 as I was watching it, i.e. some parts felt slow, some parts felt a little more performative and theatrical. I didn't always like Juliet's character. I found her a bit annoying sometimes. I still am so excited to find out what happens. I think that's what a good show does, when it leaves you hungry and wanting more. So let me know in the comments what questions you still have from season 1 that you want answered in season 2. And if you want to review the episodes together as they come out, please leave me a comment below and we will watch it together. Take care. Thank you. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you soon.